John Roberts is our guest. He is a writer, television producer, and an artist. Most recent book, Reagan's Cowboys Inside the 1984 Re-Election Campaign's Secret Operation Against Geraldine Ferraro. He's written and produced thousands of television broadcasts, and he wrote this for The Spectator. JB Pritzker once thwarted a coup. Why is he trying to start one on U.S. soil? First of all, I want to say welcome to the show, John. Appreciate you coming on with us this morning.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity.
So this is wild. I mean, I don't know how many people even knew about this. Probably nobody. And it's like you're telling another story, but this one's real, too. This is very real. So,
you know, it's an experience from back in 1988. I was working a lot as a political consultant in Latin America at the time, and working everywhere from Costa Rica down to Argentina. And the U.S. government had started to engage the new Argentinian government, which is a democratic government. For a long time, Argentina had been ruled by a military coup, and I was involved heading up a delegation down there when Governor Pritzker was one of the members at the time. He was 23 years old, fresh out of college, and the youngest guy on the trip. And we all got caught up in an attempted military coup. The military tried to overthrow the new Argentinian government, and that's where the whole story began.
So what sparked you to write this column, if I'm not mistaken, is where you quote what JB Pritzker just said the other day. It's time to fight everywhere, all at once. He urged, as you write, an assemblage of New Hampshire Democrats. Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption, but I am now. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. The reckoning is finally here. Now, first of all, do you think he actually believes what he's saying here, or do you think he's just saying this crap to try to rile up the troops for his presidential ambitions?
Yeah, I hope he doesn't believe it, but whether he really believes it or not, those words right now are really dangerous. Yeah. I mean, our society is already polarized enough, and calling for any kind of disruption of, schools, airports, bridges, universities. I mean, Cincinnati had one of these cases just
yes.
2 days ago, where protesters took over a major bridge, blocking traffic for thousands of commuters. And, it turned a little bit violent. The police had to fight some of them. Los Angeles, President Trump had to send in the National Guard because protests there grew out of control with lots of arson, attacks on police. So, these are dangerous words, even if he thinks it would give him some advantage in presumably running for the Democratic primary nomination for president. This is not rhetoric that any adult politician should be using these days on whatever side you are, Republican, Independent, Democratic, Green Party. It really doesn't matter. I mean, we just need to tamp down the rhetoric. That's got to be the first step.
I don't think they're going to do that. Do you?
Unfortunately, no. It just seems to be getting worse. With Governor Newsom in California basically green-lighting protests against J.D. Vance's family and children going to Disneyland.
Right.
What have we come to? I remember not very long ago when President Obama was in the White House, he had two lovely adolescent daughters, and the political opposition, the press, everybody declared the kids off limits. Mm-hmm. The press were not too intrusive into their lives. They let them have as normal an upbringing as you could, given that, you're the offspring of a president and living, in the national spotlight. But that always has been a norm in American politics. You don't attack another politician's children. I mean, it's out of question, beyond the pale. And when Governor Newsom is doing this by, basically posting on social media that, I hope you and your family have a good time in Disneyland, other families are being torn apart. He's basically then sending the message to some, less civil individuals.
Right.
It's okay for you to go to Disneyland and shout and yell at these kids when they come through the park or out the gates, which is exactly what happened.
Yeah. What do you envision? How do you think this is gonna? How do you think this is gonna play out? What do you think this will lead to with all these, boundary crossing calls for violence, whether it be direct or indirect? Where do you see this leading to, and how do you see this playing out?
Well, I think the July 4th incident where about a dozen people attacked an immigration and customs detention center in Texas.
Yes.
Dressed in, ballistic hardware, tactical gear, shot one officer. They
in the
were
neck.
armed. They were working as a group. Some of the individuals had links to Antifa, the loosely organized left-wing militant organization. This is where it can potentially lead to. I mean, we're talking, there was some research done back in the 1960s when we had a lot of riots in U.S. cities about how riots get started. And what one sociologist came up with is that the least inhibited individual in a group will throw a rock through a window or throw a Molotov cocktail at a police car. And the next least inhibited individual will join in. And there is a kind of social contagion that spreads.
Yes.
Whereby the inhibitions melt down, and pretty soon you have a violent mob. Now, my fear is that the rhetoric that's coming from elected officials in the country and other important influencers is encouraging these least inhibited and violent individuals in our society to take action, to get a gun, to go out and shoot somebody. And this cycle is actually what got Argentina into its trouble back in the 1970s. The two main political parties in the country became so radicalized against each other that bombings and assassinations were a daily occurrence. Finally, the Argentinian military stepped in and had to impose rule by dictatorship, essentially, a military junta. In order to quell the violence, the military was brutal. I mean, thousands of Argentinians died. They set up detention centers, the Argentinian military. They made mass arrests without warrants, coming in the middle of the night, hauling people away. To this day, there are thousands of Argentinians who simply disappeared in all of that chaos. The presumption is the military killed them, and they're buried somewhere secretly, or their bodies dumped at sea. But they've never been accounted for.
So this is where you went on this mission and to Argentina in '88. The youngest delegation member was JB Pritzker. As you said, he was standing beside you at an emergency session of the provincial legislature to defend democracy from an unfolding military revolt. And then here he is today calling for something similar. Mass protest, mobilization, disruption. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. The reckoning is finally here. It's time to fight everywhere all at once. So you literally, this is just amazing, though. You draw that Argentinian time with JB there next to you, and you say, how in God's name can he be calling for something similarly right now? So I'll ask you this. It might be the same question I've asked earlier, but does he know what he's saying, what he's calling for? Does he realize that, you think?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think he must, on some level, understand what he's calling for.
You called it a civilian coup. You called it a tantamount to a civilian coup, right? So go ahead. Sorry, I just wanted to add that part in.
That's right. Absolutely. Tantamount to a civilian coup. We have here in this country a system of checks and balances, which is working nicely. We have an opposition in Congress. We used to call each other the loyal opposition, but we do indeed have opposing parties in Congress. We've got the judiciary to be a check on the actions of the executive branch and to defend our individual rights that we all have enumerated in the Bill of Rights. We have a system that works, and to call for any kind of massive disruption of this system is to push us into dangerous territory. Now, a civilian coup can be organized through mass protests, through paralyzing, transit points. We've seen this before, where protesters show up at airports and try to block all the traffic in and out. Not necessarily the airplanes, but the people, which grounds the airplanes in turn. This has happened in the George Floyd protests, which in many cities turned violent and certainly created tremendous property damage on the line of billions of dollars. Who would want this society to go through that again?
Right.
That's the question I've got.
Here's another. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What's that?
Here's another question I have for you, and folks just joining us. It's John Roberts, writer, television producer, artist, who went on a mission with a lot of other lawmakers, other people, to Argentina, and watched this whole thing unfold. It seems like JB Pritzker is now calling for. He was with you. Let me ask you this one last piece here. Rutgers, you say, surveyed people, and 55% of those who self-identify as left of center said killing Trump is at least somewhat justifiable. 48% agreed assassinating Musk is okay. You talk about this being a broader assassination culture emerging among leftists. Let me ask you this, and this might be the most prescient question. Do these Democrats that are calling for violence like this and JB Pritzker, do they think they have to take, quote unquote, this country back from us? Take it back by force? Is that what we're seeing here?
Well, my fear is that at some level they understand what they're doing. Yes, and this is where we get into territory of civil war, basically. But what concerns me the most about this Rutgers University Network Contagion Research study is in looking at the attitudes of basically highly political left-wing individuals. What they found what they call left-wing authoritarianism growing, and basically we've seen left-wing authoritarianism.
Yes.
It tells us who can be in girls' locker rooms and participate in girls' sports. It tells us that if we question certain things about DEI, we're racist. It tells us that we're racist even if we don't question it, because that is assume that we are all systematically racist, and that the country is. And this left-wing authoritarianism goes from ideology to militancy, and it's a very dangerous trend in society, and it's one that's got to be reversed. And it has to start with more responsible leadership, especially today in the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And I think that if Governor Pritzker is pandering to the progressive wing of the party, he's taken the wrong path.
I agree very much. John Roberts, writer, television producer, artist. His latest book is Reagan's Cowboys Inside the 1984 Re-Election Campaign's Secret Operation Against Geraldine Ferraro. I will retweet this story that you wrote in the this column that you wrote in The Spectator. It's absolutely fantastic. I appreciate you coming on with us. Thank you very much for your time today, sir.
Well, thanks, Chris. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll tweet that out. If you want to follow me on social media, at Chris Kroc Show. That's at Chris Kroc Show, ChrisKrok on Twitter. It'll be out there in a sec. When we come back, remember we love talking about the ice cream man who was persecuted by CBS 2, Channel 2, under COVID. Well, we have a woman driving an ice cream truck that should be harassed and bothered, unlike the one we have in Chicago. And I'll tell you about that next. And what 2 or 3 towns in Chicagoland are among U.S. News and World Report's among safest places to live. A couple of Chicago suburbs that made it in the top 10 safest place to live. Guess I'll tell you coming up next. It's Chris and for Dan on Chicago's Morning Answer, AM 560, The Answer.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Hey, this is Sean Thompson. There's an old joke about Uncle Sam's tax short form. The first line says, "How much did you make?" The next line says, "Send it in." Sadly, that's not funny at all for honest people who pay taxes. But that's exactly what a lot of people do in their retirement. They take money out of their 401k and their IRA, and they send it into the IRS. Tom Fortino of Alpha Wealth Group believes there's a better plan for your retirement than Uncle Sam's plan of send it in. What if your current plan includes thousands of dollars in unnecessary taxes and fees? What if you're headed for higher Medicare payments, lower Social Security checks? What if the savings you may realize allows you to retire even earlier?